Hey, everybody, welcome to the daily update for Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. No camera today because still having issues with the new studio setup. So let's just jump right into it. Down a little bit today across the board. We gapped down. It was really interesting. Had a gap down. Actually, let's go back here. So at the open, it looked like we had some relative strength. Here, let's zoom in on this, shall we? So it looked like we had some relative strength here on in the NASDAQ, right? NASDAQ was up here. Everything else was starting to go down at the open. And then it kind of flipped at some point during the day. Then the NASDAQ went down. Then we firmed up and everyone thought, okay, this is that slingshot that we sometimes talk about. The days where it looks like you're falling off the cliff and then we stabilize and we go higher. But as the day went on, we lost this rally and actually sold almost all of it off. Got basically, well, not quite back to the lows of the day, but just barely above yesterday's low. And, some people think that we're waiting on NVIDIA tomorrow. Some people think that it's summertime and people are going on vacation. We've got a 3-day weekend coming up. It's hard to say. What I will say is the sell off that we have right now seems very, very orderly to me. There's no big spikes in volume. There's no big red days so far. We're just below the 8-day. We haven't even gotten to the 23.6 Fibonacci retracement. We're about halfway there. We could get down to here. We could really get all the way down to here and still be fine. Don't want to do it in 1 day or 2 days, but if we did it over time. So right now, I can't seem to true up the amount of panic I see online with what is happening in the market. The market needs to pull back a little bit to consolidate. So I'm not sure what's going on here. If you look at the Qs, it's the same deal. A very orderly pullback. IWM hit the 50 and started to push off as buyers stepped in, which is not bad action, especially if we can get some follow through tomorrow. And the Dow's looking a little bit toppier. Now, the big issue that everyone, of course, is talking about are bonds. So bonds hit a low that we haven't seen since a long time, since October of 2023. And people say there's stuff going on in the bond market. Bonds are telling us something. Okay, I get it. But bonds have been telling us something this whole time. Okay, bonds broke down here, broke back down here, broke down last week, and really the market has not reacted. So the question is, are bonds telling us something that is going to show up in the market? Or is this market just so strong it doesn't really care? We've thrown so many things out. We've thrown, China, we've thrown Iran, we've thrown tariffs, we've thrown, bonds. I don't know. I don't know, but I do know this. Right now, the market is acting very calm, very orderly. Now, that could change tomorrow, but the way it is right now, there doesn't seem to be anything that it's worried about. One thing I'm a little concerned about is what's going on in the South Korean market. There is apparently a lot of speculation. I saw a report today that pensioners are selling their life insurance policies. They're cashing them out so that they can invest in the crazy stock market there. That usually doesn't end well. And when it doesn't end well, I'll be interested to see if our market cares. If there is some sort of spillover, some contagion, that could be the beginning of something more dramatic. But if our market doesn't care, if it just shrugs it off like it has everything else, I think that's another sign of how strong this market is. All right. We look at the VIX here. We haven't really seen a follow through. Let me get on the right chart here. We didn't see a follow through from yesterday's failure. However, we have a very tight bar here. Gun to my head, this feels like a pause before rolling down here, but it could just be a pause before curling back up. I think the next move or the eventual move is going to be down. We'll see. We already looked at bonds, so let's just go to the dollar. You can see it's pushing back up against this level here, which would put more pressure on the market. MAG starting to come in a bit, but again, very orderly. No big spike in volume. DRAM with a nice reversal today. Remember, I was talking about the concept. What if this thing just fills in, goes sideways, doesn't crash, but it just pauses for a while? We'll keep an eye on that. SMH, also an orderly pullback. Not my favorite bar there. I would like to see some follow through on XLF. I think how we resolve this bar here is going to tell us a lot. Right there. Sorry, my voice is, I'm still having voice issues. So carry, not so hot. It looks to me like it's maybe getting ready to break down in this area, which would not be so good. XHB looks horrible. Oil, nothing seems to be slowing oil down, which can't be good for the market. And again, as we see all these things that we say, well, this should be bad for the market, but it hasn't been. Does that mean it's going to be? Or does it mean this market is just a tough bastard and doesn't really care about these things? We're going to find out soon enough for sure. Gold looks like it's starting its next leg down. Gold miners certainly confirming that. Silver doing the same. XLV, all right, looking a little bit more constructive here, attacking this intermediate term downtrend. XBI not looking good at all. TAN with a big drop, but holding where you'd want it to. So you want to see if it firms up in this area. Bitcoin right on the precipice, right on the 50, right on the support level. Really needs to get back in gear here, or it's not going to be good for crypto. And pot doesn't exist. Nothing's coming over today. A lot of things that stuck on this list for more than 2 or 3 days are going away now, which often happens. Sometimes they go away by triggering, and sometimes they go away by failing. So Morgan Stanley goes away. Goldman Sachs, unfortunately, goes away. Amazon, still okay. Actually, probably looks better than it did yesterday. So that stays. Google, unfortunately, goes away. BB still looks pretty good, so that sticks in there. And Joby still looks okay. I actually like it better with that little reversal. Oracle goes away. Microsoft was up, popped up as high as 433 this morning. Was up like 12 points and then gave it all back. Ugly. Now Tesla. So remember I put Tesla on here yesterday and I said we'd be looking for a reversal. Let's just look at a best case scenario, how you could have played Tesla on a reversal. So Tesla gaps down, it runs down here, but then it starts basing in this area. So depending on how aggressive you are, you could have bought here when it put in that higher low and broke above here, right? And then if you did that, here's how it works. When you come up to the lows of yesterday, you could have sold some, or you could have sold some here and said, well, look, this is a decent reversal hammer. You've locked in some profit. You hang on to a bit, hoping that it gaps higher tomorrow, and then you reevaluate whether you want to hold it. You could have held the whole amount, depending on where your entry was here and how confident you are in this. But that's the point, is that the purple list of things that we're looking at, that there's going to be a change, we think, but they're not necessarily set up on the daily. And again, this is a idealized way of how you would do it, but this is the general concept, right? You buy the reversal, you ride the pop, you either sell it or sell a partial depending on how the daily bar is forming, and then you make your decision, on the next day if you're going to keep holding it. We go over to, so actually, to tell you the truth, this goes over to the green list. All right. And then ASTS. So there's another tough one, okay? If you held ASTS through this whole thing here, unless it's a longer term position, probably not great money management. certainly for a trade. But let's say you had it, right? Let's say you'd gotten it in here and you had this gap down and you say, okay, I'm out. Again, it gave you a really good spot where you could have got involved. You could have said, okay, so here's the low, and now we're basing like this, and we put in a higher low, and then you could do like, you could buy there. You could even wait until it breaks and recaptures yesterday's high of day, sorry, low of day, and then you could have bought somewhere in here on this break there. And it's the same scenario. You can decide, you get back up to goes green. You could have sold some there. You could have just held because it was still way above the 9. You could have sold some into the high of yesterday, and then you have the option to decide whether you want to carry it overnight. So, I'm going to keep it on the active list. SATL, definitely active. Almost say you could put it on the green list. I'd like one more day. CrowdStrike, I mean, look, that looks like it needs a rest for sure, but it's still definitely active. IGB tried to go today. I mentioned in the trading room it probably was going to rest at the 200 EMA, which it did. I'd like to see 1 or 2 days maybe go sideways here, maybe even the rest of the week, and then we go into next week's shortened week. That would be a great setup to go higher. And Oscar took the day off. So that's it. If you're not in the trading room, get in there. And if you get in there, I'll see you there tonight.